We live in a world dominated by visual media, and as a collective, humans seem to prioritize what we see as a more tangible or real sensory experience than what we hear. And there's some truth to that, because before the advent of recording technology, sound was fleeting and ephemeral. So naturally, many had a hunch that if sound could somehow be manifested visually, we might gain some insight into its inner workings. The interest in the visualization of sound dates back to the writings of Leonardo da Vinci and Robert Hooke as early as the 17th century. Later, more technically precise experiments were done. These included Ernst Chladni's plate demonstrations that visualized the different modes of vibration produced relative to frequency and timbre, as well as Rudolf Koenig's manometric flame apparatus, one of the first ever mechanisms used to examine a sound's wave shape. These innovations were essential in expediting our understanding of the physics behind acoustic phenomena, and therefore our ability to reproduce and synthesize sound. Early on in the 20th century, there were a group of mostly Russian artists, composers, and scientists working towards the same shared goal of synthesizing sound from light. With the advent of synchronized sound-on-film technology, sound could be reproduced using the photographic recording of its wave shape printed directly onto film. Artists began experimenting with playing back hand-drawn images using the same technology, and in 1930, Arseny Aramov produced the first hand-drawn motion picture soundtracks. This technique became known as graphic sound or optical synthesis. In the 2 years to follow, Russian artists Evgeny Schlopo and Nikola Voinov developed both the variophone and the nivotone. These instruments automated certain parameters of the playback and production of optical synthesis. About 10 years later in 1940, renowned Canadian animator Norman Mclaren adopted similar techniques to score his minimalist animations.
This series of thin, straight lines gives a sharp, rather unpleasant sound. But these round dots are a bit smoother. Now, what can they be used for, these hand-drawn sounds? Well, Norman Mclaren finds that they are a perfectly natural accompaniment to some of his hand-drawn motion pictures. Each movement of the screen can have its own specially designed sound.
Mclaren bridged the gap between the niche world of the Russian artists who founded these techniques and the broader world of cinema, further realizing the concepts behind optical synthesis by creating films centered around the synergy between both synthetically produced sound and image. Flashing forward to the early 1960s, the methods used to produce electronic music had diversified, but the genre was still in its early stages. Delia Derbyshire, a resident sound designer at the BBC's Radiophonic Workshop, used musique concrète and tape manipulation processes to create otherworldly scores, primarily used for radio plays.
If the sound we want exists already, in real life, say, we couldn't go and record it. We can get the lower sounds we need from the rhythm by slowing down the tape, and the higher sounds by speeding up the tape. And then all we have to do is cut the notes the right length. We can join them together on a loop and listen to them.
At this time, the concept of electronic music as a whole was still very foreign to the average American consumer. But that changed when the Radiophonic Workshop began working with television, and Delia composed the theme music for the original Doctor Who series.
Delia Derbyshire, the woman responsible for sending children scuttling behind the sofa with a distinctive and chilling Doctor Who theme tune.
Delia Derbyshire, the woman who, in 1963, used feedback and bits of tape to create the authentic sound of travelling through space and time.
Looking back, this moment marked a broad cultural shift in the history of electronic music. It wasn't until these alien sounds were used in conjunction with popular visual media that shared the same eerie and futuristic sentiment that they were validated by a larger audience as having a broader range of musical and cultural application.